Kiedy 2 lata temu kochana żona Briana, Rachel, zmarła na nowotwór piersi, wydawało się, że w jego życiu już nic gorszego się nie wydarzy, ale rok temu sam dowiedział się, że choruje na nowotwór. Jest to złośliwy nowotwór przełyku. Są już przerzuty. Brian jest w tej chwili pod opieką paliatywną i jak sam mówi, nie wie, czy zostało mu 6 miesięcy czy 6 lat życia. Kiedy trafiłam więc na film, który nagrał ich zresztą więcej na YouTube'a, jak kupił Porsche i podróżuje po Europie, to bardzo chciałam zrobić z nim wywiad, chciałam go zaprosić do podcastu i Brian zgodził się od razu. Powiedział, że jeżeli w ten sposób może pomóc choć jednej osobie, to chce to zrobić, bo Brian jest, zaraz się zresztą dowiecie, jednym z największych optymistów, najbardziej pogodnych, życzliwych, dobrych i pełnych empatii ludzi, a jednocześnie jest też takim trochę filozofem. Zapraszam do wysłuchania tego odcinka, który jest wyjątkowy, ponieważ po pierwsze rozmawiamy po angielsku, po drugie jest to odcinek, który jest opublikowany w formie wideo.
Podcast powstaje pod patronatem projektu Życie warte jest rozmowy oraz we współpracy z ekspertem Biura do Spraw Zapobiegania Zachowaniom Samobójczym Instytutu Psychiatrii i Neurologii w Warszawie.
Welcome to the Other Side podcast. My special guest today is Brian Kinsella from the UK, whose story could be the script for one of the most beautiful and moving films you've ever seen. Our entire conversation will be in English, but don't worry, my Polish listeners can simply turn on the transcription. Hi Brian, it's great to see you. Thank you for agreeing to this interview.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Brian, your story probably would have never reached me if it weren't from my friend who is a Porsche fan. He sent me off your YouTube videos, thinking your story might be a perfect topic for my podcast. The title of the video is Cancer in Me, but me in a Porsche Boxster across Europe. Can you tell the listeners what this title actually means?
Well, cancer has played a very big part in my life for the last 4 years. It was 2018 when my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she went through the full works for a year. And we thought everything was fine. She seemed to come through it fine, and we travelled again in our motorhome. We started travelling again in 2019, and then in 2020 we were on our way to Morocco when we were actually in France in the motorhome when COVID hit the world, and we returned home. So we arrived back home at the end of April, and she started with breathing difficulties. At first I thought obviously it was COVID. She had so many tests, 6 COVID tests, all of which proved negative. Anyway, her breathing deteriorated over a period of 10 weeks. She went into hospital, and 5 days later she died.
Oh, sorry very much.
Sorry. Anyway, so the doctor said we knew that she had fibrosis on her lung, and if you have fibrosis on your lung, there's nothing they can do about it. So the doctor had said, "Oh well, I can write cause of death down as pulmonary fibrosis," and I said, "No, I want a post-mortem." He said, "Oh, you do know what that involves?" Well, having spent 30 years in the police service, I knew exactly what it involved. So they had a post-mortem, and the cause of death was inconclusive. So then they went for what they call histology, which is where they take minute samples from the vital organs, and it transpired that basically she was riddled with cancer. So we'd been together since the age of 17.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Quite a long time.
Well,
you were kids.
Yeah. We married in '79. We had 40 years together. Well, we were about to celebrate our 40th wedding anniversary, and Rachel said, "Oh no, well, can we not just wait until our 50th?" And I said, no, we're going to celebrate 40th, you know. May not be a great achievement for you, but it is for me. So we celebrated our 40th wedding anniversary with all our friends and family, which turned out to be one of my better decisions because she died 7 months after that. Anyway, so at the age of 63, I was in basically an emotional wasteland. Took some coming to terms with. I sold the motorhome. I bought motorbikes because motorbikes have been our life. We actually met through motorbikes. And
can we stop here for a moment, because I'd like to know if you, of course, if you can share this with my listeners. How did you and Rachel meet?
Well, we were both, like I say, we were both 17. She'd only just turned 17 actually, and she was going to art college in Lancaster. But we lived in a small village in the south of Cumbria, and I was working for my parents. But before I started work every day for my parents, I used to go out on my motorbike. And unbeknown to me, this girl used to watch this motorbike go past as she walked down to the railway station. So she kind of had designs on whoever rode the bike. So anyway, we were in the she was in a pub with a friend one night, and I walked into the same pub, and a friend said, "Oh, this is a guy with the." Well, it was a 250 motorbike. It was just a small one, really, but it was the biggest one in the village. And basically, we started going out. Yeah. So it was the motorbike that attracted Rachel to me, not me. I think she was a bit disappointed when I took my crush helmet off. And in those days, I had a lot of kind of curly hair. Obviously, it went a long time ago. But yeah, so that's how we met, and she ended up having motorbikes herself, and we kind of grew up until we had a family, and then the motorbikes took a back seat.
Well, she obviously wasn't disappointed because she spent her life with you.
Well, yeah, that's right. I feel very fortunate. I mean, you know what I'm going through at the moment with the cancer. But yet I still, the thing about, I know we'll probably get into my cancer, but the thing is that I see that there's like three elements to us as human beings. We've got the physical side, and we have the emotional side and the mental side. Well, in 2020, my emotions took such a hit that we have two daughters, but basically I could barely deal with it myself, never mind look after them. Our first grandchild was born 5 weeks after Rachel died. You know, she knew he was coming and she never got to meet him. Now, in a way, that's kind of like was a blessing, because it meant that my two daughters and I could focus on the newborn, rather than, grieving over Rachel so much. But nevertheless, it took a long time for me to come to terms with that, and even now, obviously, I still get upset about it. But when cancer kind of struck me at the very beginning of last year, my focus very much changed to my own survival. So I was saying, that I believe there's three elements, and we've got the physical thing, and obviously I've taken a physical bashing over the last 18 months now. I took an emotional bashing in 2020, which kind of lasted a while, but I'm so fortunate because mentally I'm so I only see positives. You know, I am fortunate. I'm a lot more fortunate than most people, because the weight of having cancer doesn't bother me. It kind of, I mean, obviously there are times when I have doubts, but and it's easy talking when you're not in pain and when you're not in any discomfort. And I must say that every day I will experience pain and I will experience discomfort, but every day I experience no pain and no discomfort. And I just think, wow, this is just fantastic. Every day I will take a moment to appreciate just being comfortable. And it's not just that. I mean, I don't know if you want me to talk about my cancers now or later on. But no, go on.
Let's stop for a moment, because on your blog, which I read, you wrote about hitting the reset button regarding travel.
Yes.
But I found you precisely because of your journeys. So what made you decide to set off again?
Well, after Rachel died, I really didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. We'd travelled. We'd been retired for eight years. We used to travel in a motorhome, away for 3 months, at home for 3 months, away for 3 months, at home for 3 months, and we alternated for 8 years. But when she died, the motorhome was too big for me. It was the memories that we had together, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life at all. I didn't even know if I wanted to travel, but I had to focus on something. I had to cling to something, and I suppose motorbikes had been pretty much my life, apart from a kind of 10-year sabbatical when the children were growing up. I'd had motorbikes all my life, so I suppose it was a little bit like, well, it was what I knew. So I thought, well, I'll try that. So I got the motorbike to start with, and bought quite a few motorbikes and started travelling on my own.
Quite a few means?
Well, let me see. I must have had now about 6 motorbikes in 4 years.
Wow.
Sometimes 3 at the same time. I have 2 now. I bought one about 3 weeks ago, another one 3 weeks ago, so I have 2
It's
bikes.
a real passion.
Well, I suppose it is, but it's a right. I have to have something to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the sort of person who can just sit at home, and I'm forced to sit at home a lot of the time at the moment because I'm going through chemotherapy, so I can't travel abroad. But you know, when COVID struck. And, well, I don't know what it was like in other countries, but in our country, they started off by saying you couldn't travel abroad.
Mm-hmm.
And then they said you couldn't travel out of your own county. And then they said you couldn't travel out of your own town. And then it was basically you couldn't travel at all. You couldn't go out of your own house. But, you know, you can find, just because obstacles are put in your way, doesn't mean to say that you still can't find enjoyment closer to home. And there's enjoyment on your doorstep. And so, in a sense, I focus on the things I can do, not the things that I can't. So, now here's an example. So, last year I had an esophagectomy. But basically, they took out probably about 8 inches of my esophagus because of the cancer, the tumour. And because I couldn't swallow anything. Now, after the 10-hour operation, which was robotic assisted, I woke up in intensive care, and I think I had about 7 tubes coming out of my body. And there was a nurse who was looking after me, and we heard a commotion outside. And at Newcastle, there's something that's known as the Great North Run, which is a half marathon. But this was the Great North 10K, so it was just a 10 kilometre race. And the nurse and I made a pact that we would run it together this year. And it fell on the 7th of July, which was the anniversary of Rachel's death. And it's having targets like that that inspired me. You know, it's just having targets to inspire you to do things, and that's just my makeup. So with the going back to the travel, I love planning. I used to plan all our travels in the motorhome. So when I'm at home, I suppose, the passion is, right, where can I go? Where can I go? Where excites me? And I would just use it, and I would just do that. And I suppose that's why I'm doing a bit of YouTube now, is because I can't travel abroad whilst I'm going through chemotherapy. But so therefore, I'll travel, sort of in England, and I'll do YouTubes, and just something to keep myself active. I mean, my friends and my family say, "Well, you just slow down a bit," but I think because my latest cancer diagnosis is actually that it's inoperable, and therefore I'm going through palliative chemotherapy. When you start to lose something, how much more valuable it becomes. And I suppose I'm losing time. Now we're all losing time in a sense. It's just that I know about mine, but most other people don't. And we think that tomorrow is just going to be like today, until it isn't. And when it isn't, that's a wake-up call. And I suppose that's what I've had, is a wake-up call. And now I don't know if I've got 6 months to left or 6 years, but I don't kind of look further than a few months ahead. Just enjoy the moment. Life is now. It's not tomorrow. It's not next week or next month. It's actually now. So make the most of the now. But and I'm fortunate. I'm that old that I don't go to work. So I've got freedom of choice. And then I feel good about it. Some things in my life are beyond my control. The loss of Rachel was beyond my control. Me being diagnosed with cancer is beyond my control. However, what isn't beyond my control is my mental state. I have control of that. And for me, contentment is the most important thing. If you are content with life, then you can wish for nothing more. And when Rachel was here, I was completely content. I didn't want anything else. I had everything I wanted. And now, strange as though it may seem, I'm getting back to contentment. That I just love what I have in my life, and enjoy as much as I can. It's just it's just a shame, I suppose, that it maybe isn't going to last as long as I would like. And we all think. We probably don't think, but if we were to stop and think, we'd like to think that we're all going to live until our late 80s or 90s in perfect health, and then maybe suddenly die in a painless death doing something we really love doing. But the reality of it is not like that. That does not happen to many people. As we get older, the chances are there's going to be 1 or 2 problems developing, and some of those may become fatal. But I'm not down at all. I am just I have such a fantastic life.
Yeah, you don't seem...
I've had such a fantastic life, and I'm still having one. It's just like, yeah.
You don't seem down at all.
No, no. I don't. I'm fortunate. People who have cancer, some people, emotionally and mentally, it can be so devastating for them. Now, I don't know if it's because I'm thick or what, But I just think I suppose it's my personality, and maybe partly the fact that I haven't got Rachel here, that I haven't got somebody worrying. Well, obviously my daughters worry about me, but we don't really talk about it. And maybe if Rachel was here, emotionally it would be a little bit more difficult. But because I'm on my own, it's like, it's not a problem. I can handle this. I can handle it.
It's very interesting what you are saying. I'd like to ask you if you have always been such a positive person.
Well, it's funny. People, I only started doing YouTube because I was doing a blog of I used to do a blog of our motorhome travels. And the only way I could put a video into the blog was to do a YouTube. So I would do a YouTube and then put it into my blog. Now I had something like 25 followers on YouTube, and they all knew me. Okay, and then I think I've had about like 250 people had watched my YouTube videos, and that was it, right? And then after Rachel died, I got the motorbike and I travelled and I went to the North Cape on the motorbike, and I put that YouTube out, and the subscribers went from 25 to over 400. And then the one with the Porsche, which is obviously involves the cancer with me as well, has now taken my subscribers up to nearly 2,000.
Yes, I saw that yesterday.
And it's kind of like, what is it that's kind of captured? What is it that interests people? And
you are very inspiring.
It's funny, using the word inspiring. I've had probably I know this is small fry in YouTube world. I've had 500 or 600 comments, and the word inspired or inspiring has cropped up so many times. And if I can help one person, then it's all worth it.
That's my goal too.
But this thing about positivity, in fact, I've got a YouTube in the making about positivity, and it's not something that I work on. It's just I'm very conscious that a negative mindset can only impact you negatively, and a positive mindset can only impact you positively. I'm aware of that, but it's not kind of through design. It's just the person I am. I just like focus on the good rather than we all have bad things going on in our lives, but we have good things as well. And I suppose I just kind of I got up the other morning. It was 5:30. And I opened the curtain on the landing window and I saw the full moon. And I said out loud, wow, isn't that fantastic? There's nobody else in the house. I was talking to myself. It's that appreciation of what we have all around us. The beauty that we have is just like, wow, it's just amazing. It's just amazing, isn't it? Life is just amazing. Make the most of it while you can. Do what you can while you can.
Yeah, that's true. I'd like to talk about YouTube.
Okay.
And this video, the film through which I started learning about your story, Cancer in Me and me in a Porsche Boxster traveling across Europe. Why a Porsche? Previously, it was it were motorcycles and a motorhome, and now suddenly such a luxury brand. How did that came about?
Well, Rachel used to say I was easily led, and maybe she was right. So, I've never been what they call a petrol head. I've never been particularly interested in sports cars. it's quite a complicated thing. It's quite a complicated thing, really. It's about motorbikes and different motorbikes for different weather and travelling, and because travel was a big thing. But I bought a motorbike, which was a touring motorbike with had all the protection. It had a screen and panniers, carrying my luggage and everything. And I bought that whilst I bought that prior to my esophagectomy, because when I had the tumour in my esophagus, I went through. The process was I would have chemotherapy first to reduce the size of the tumour, and I went through a period of 5 weeks where I couldn't swallow even water. The tumour was so big I couldn't even swallow water. So they put a tube down. They managed to get a tube down through my nose and into my stomach, and I was living off liquid feed. I lost 2 stones in 2 weeks. And I'd aged 10 years, and I went into hospital, and I nearly never came out. Things were that bad. It was the worst place I'd ever been in my life. But after the 3rd chemotherapy, the tumour had reduced in size, and I could start to eat and drink again. I mean, I went through 5 weeks where basically I had a bowl, and I was putting water in my mouth, and the only pleasure I got was letting cold water dribble through my teeth and over my lips back into the bowl for 5 weeks. I couldn't feed myself or anything, and it was quite a difficult time. Anyway, after the 3rd chemotherapy, I could start to eat again. They took the tube out, and life was rosy. I had 7 weeks until my esophagectomy. So I bought a motorbike that I could ride in all weathers, and everything was fine. I did a bit of a tour around England. I had my esophagectomy. I was told it could take a year to recover, and that my life would never be the same again. And they were right. It isn't, but I can still have a very comfortable and enjoyable life. I think every few weeks I would see the surgeon, and I decided that in the December I was going to go abroad on the motorbike. But bearing in mind my operation was the end of June, and they're talking about a year's recovery. So I'm going to Spain for 6 weeks on a motorbike in December. Oh no, I don't think that's a good idea. They said, I don't think that's a good idea, you know. So it was in September. I had my last chemotherapy on the 27th of September, and on the 30th of September it was my birthday. And I thought, it's been a difficult year. And the two.
Wait a minute. 20th of September is your birthday?
No, 30th.
30th, okay.
So the 27th of September. Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Yeah, so 10 days. So 10 days. So not today.
I wanted to sing you happy birthday.
No. So in 10 days' time. So the 27th of September I was my last chemotherapy. 30th of September, I thought, I'd found this car. Now, 2 of the friends who I'd do motorcycle tours with, they both had Porsches. And Rachel said, "Oh, you're so easily influenced." Now, if they'd had Jaguars or something else, I probably would have ended up with a Jaguar. But because they had Porsches, I started looking at Porsches. And when Rachel died, I said, I am not saving for a rainy day because I've had it. And basically, all of last year, it absolutely threw it down as well, physically, for me. So I kind of treated myself to the Porsche. Anyway, when I saw the surgeon and said, well, I've got a car, I could go in the car, and they just gave it the thumbs up. They said, oh yeah, no problem, go in the car. So I went to Portugal and Spain in the Porsche Boxster, and then and then as that video on YouTube shows, I had, actually there's another trip that I did in the Porsche, which isn't included in that YouTube video, and then finally I went to Tuscany in it, and I'm planning. But I finished chemotherapy at the end again. The next lot of chemotherapy at the end of October, and I plan to go abroad again, maybe southern Spain in the winter in the Porsche again. So we'll see, but I don't look too far ahead at the moment. But I feel I'm actually better than my diagnosis would suggest.
When traveling in your Porsche, being aware of your illness, do you feel, I don't know, better somehow? I mean, mentally? Do you find greater meaning in your life, or it's just a motor passion?
I think I enjoy my life. It's almost suffering, in a sense. I said this in one of my videos. Suffering has become the catalyst for me enjoying my life even more than ever. So, if you say, for example, have toothache, all you want is not to have toothache. And when you don't have toothache, it is such a relief. Are you great? And then you just get back into your normal life and you forget about it. Well, I have a daily reminder about where I am with my health. And that daily reminder is actually not a bad thing, because I don't want to lose sight of the fact that, how can I put it? I don't want to lose sight of the fact that my life is so vulnerable, and everybody's life is vulnerable. It's just that we don't realise it. Most of us don't realise how fragile life is. When I was in the police, I was in for 30 years, and I was on the traffic department a lot of the time, and I used to obviously go to fatal road traffic accidents, and I realised even then how fragile life was. That people could just be driving along and be completely happy, and might be a family in a car, and life is just normal. Then in a split second, their lives can be devastated, and their families' lives and their friends' lives, because of a mistake, or an error on somebody's part, or just through bad luck. And because of that, I've always been aware that life is our lives hang by a thread. I've always been aware of that. But when it gets really close to home, when when your partner dies, or when you're diagnosed with something really serious, it's yet another reminder, isn't it, of how we can take things for granted, like the eating and drinking. How often do people actually think? I mean, it's not a given. We're born with, the vast majority of us are born with the ability to see, hear, touch, feel, smell. That we can feed ourselves, and we can have drink and survive, right? It's all taken for granted. We don't even give it a second thought until something's taken away from us. And then it's not a guarantee. We've been fortunate. We've taken these things for granted. Now, a friend of mine, he had a serious, all heart attacks are serious, but he had one where they had to restart him 3 times. We had a conversation, and he said, oh yeah, but he said, you just get back into routine. He changed his diet and everything because of his heart attack, and then his life wasn't as happy as it had been before. So he decided, look, I'd rather live a happy life even if that means that it's shorter, than live a life where I'm not allowed to have some of the foods or drink that I really like. And I thought, well, actually there's a difference. You had an event in your life. It was like just an event like that. And now he's fallen back into what was his routine before the heart attack. The difference with me is I have a daily reminder that life is not the same. I can't eat the volume that I used to eat. I can't drink the things that I used to be able to drink. I can't sleep lying down properly. Because of the operation, I don't have anything to stop food coming back up. And there are other symptoms I have. So I have plenty of daily reminders that actually, things are different now than they were before all this cancer came. But it doesn't mean to say that I still can't enjoy my life. I still can go out riding my motorbike and drive my car, enjoy my family. So I'm lucky, really.
You mentioned you work as a policeman, and when we were discussing our podcast interview, you sent me a fragment of your memoirs, which, by the way, are excellently written. I remember you mentioned your friends have been encouraging you to write a book.
Yeah.
I think it would be a great book to read, but there's that excerpt that deals with the trauma you experienced as a police officer. Could you share that incident with our listeners?
All of the incident, or just the the thing you want me to read out, or the whole incident? What do you want me to say? Do you want me to say just what the?
No, I'd like to ask you to just to describe what happened to your friend and you, and how did it? What was the impact on your life?
Okay, so I was Carlisle is it's a city, but it's a very small city in England. We're in a predominantly rural county of Cumbria, so serious. It's not like Manchester or London or Liverpool, places like that. So we don't have the same kind of serious crime going on, or certainly a lot less on the volume, a lot less than those big cities. So it was 2:00 in the morning, and I was with a colleague, and we were on a housing estate, and we were actually looking for somebody who was breaking into cars. And then 2:00 in the morning on night shift is a bad time, really. Well, it was then, because nearly all the shift were in having the refreshments, because they started work at 10 at night and finished at 6 in the morning, although things have changed now. So we were one of the few patrols out, and we've been sent to a domestic dispute. Now, never say, it's just a domestic, but generally husband and wife falling out. So we rolled up at the place, and Angus, the lad who I was working with, I was driving, so he was first out of the car, so he was a few yards in front of me. We went to this terrace house on the housing estate in Carlisle, and Angus knocked on the door. As he knocked on the door, it opened, and I don't know if am I allowed to swear on this? Am I allowed to swear say what exactly was said?
Yes,
okay,
of course.
So the door opened, and this man thrust a shotgun into Angus's chest and screamed at him, "Get on your fucking knees or I'll blow your fucking head off." Well, Angus, this is a shock. This is just something you don't expect. So Angus just put his arms up in the air. He said, "It's all right, mate, we're leaving." And he just turned his back on him and walked back up the path towards me. and then started to walk off down the cul-de-sac, down to the entrance of the cul-de-sac. And I was, well, in complete bewilderment, and I must have just stood there like some kind of mannequin, a dummy. So of course the guy swung the gun round to me and screamed at me, "Get on your fucking knees or I'll blow your fucking head off." The first thing that went through my mind was, well, if it worked for Angus, it worked for me. So I just put my hands up and walked off down the street. The second thing that immediately went through my mind was I wasn't going to see my daughter's 10th birthday, which was in about a week's time. So we were both walking away, trying to walk away from the guy. It was very... People say, "Oh, you must have been scared." It's funny, I wasn't scared at all. It was just incredibly tense. I mean, so tense. I could hear my breathing. Every footstep that I took boomed on the road surface. It was like I had a suicide bomber's belt around my waist, and if I breathed too heavily, that we would both die. It was incredibly tense. Anyway, I said on the radio very quietly, "There's a man here with a gun, we need backup." But the backup didn't arrive in time. We got to the entrance to the cul-de-sac, and Angus started to walk down the hill, and I just stood there, and this guy had been prodding Angus in the back with his gun and shouting at him all the time, and Angus just kept going. So the guy ran round the front of him and shoved this gun in his chest. Now, I'm not joking, I must have been 10 metres away, not even 10 metres, side on to them. I must have been focused on his finger on the trigger of the gun, and he just pulled the trigger, and just there was this huge bang. I saw the flame come from the gun, and then they were both still standing there, and I couldn't understand it. And Angus looked at me and ran towards me. We ran up the hill, and Angus just a young lad. I mean, I was 40 something then, and Angus was just in his 20s, and he just ran past me like I was running through treacle. And I looked back, and the guy just took aim, and he kind of like racked his gun, and took aim, and I thought, we're just going to get it in the back. And he never pulled the trigger, and we hid behind some cars. And then he disappeared from view, and then eventually all the police rolled up, and then the firearms team rolled up, and one thing and another. And I said on the radio, I said, Angus has just been shot at, but it must be blanks, because like he couldn't miss. Anyway, it took a couple of hours or 3 hours for it to be resolved, and the man was arrested at his house, and Angus was taken straight down to the police station, and I was still kept up there searching for the guy initially, but he was eventually found back in his house. So when I got down to the police station at 5 o'clock in the morning, Angus was in one of the interview rooms. I said, because we have to do statements I said, "What the hell happened? He shot you through the chest." He said, I could see he was going to pull the trigger, and I ducked as he pulled the trigger. Well, I never saw him duck. I mean, as far as I was concerned, Angus had just been shot through the chest. Anyway, I didn't know anything about guns. The firearms team said if it had been blanks, it would have killed him at that range. Anyway, the gun was recovered, 1 live round discharged, 6 left in the chamber. The pellets were embedded in the trees, the end of the cul-de-sac, the house walls, and everything. The forensic examination of Angus's jacket said the end of the barrel must have been less than 2 inches away from him when it was discharged, but we couldn't explain the amount of gunshot residue on the inside of his jacket. Well, to this day. But I, the only explanation I can give is that I was so intensely focused on the trigger I never saw anything else move. I just So that disturbed us both emotionally and mentally.
Can you tell it was some kind of a trauma?
It's funny actually because that was 1996, and any kind of counselling was very in those days was very, very fresh, really, particularly in the police. But I remember being in the CID interview room with somebody from the HR department, Human Resources department. And I remember with tears streaming down my face, screaming at her, saying, "I am not stressed." I don't think I was very convincing, to be honest.
Obviously.
So anyway, I was off work for a while. If you imagine that we think in a logical fashion like reading a book, it's kind of like a line after line. It's all kind of straightforward. After that incident, my mind was like scribble. I didn't know what was up or down. There was you have ideas of suicide, you have unreasonable thoughts of, oh, he's going to get friends to come and kill me. Angus felt the same. He got 14 years for attempt murder, and of course it wasn't personal. It was police. It was the fact that we were police officers, and so yeah, But and strange as it seems, I don't hold a grudge. I don't hold a grudge against anybody for anything.
You could have left the police after that incident, but you did not. Why?
No, I didn't. Well, right. So it's probably best if I read an excerpt from where I was with it. But I remember I got professional counselling. I used to think all kinds of things, but one lessons in life. Okay, so we lived in a rural area, and I had my dog. I took my dog for a walk on the lead down this country lane, and it was winter, and I was just staring down at the endless grey road surface, and all sorts of thoughts were going through my head. And then for whatever reason I kind of looked up, and at the moment I looked up, about 20 or 30 little birds flew out from the hawthorn hedge up into the sky, which was a lovely light shade of blue, and the sun setting on the horizon. And at that moment I thought, I have a choice. I can look down at this endless grey road surface, or I can look up and see the beauty of nature all around me. It doesn't change where I am physically, but it can change where I am mentally. And that was just a lesson in life. And I think, in some respects, that lesson that I learnt then, back in 96, that would probably be 97, I may be using it now to have this, if you like, positivity about my life now, about appreciating the good things in life and not dwelling on the bad things. So I started to write, because I was writing a blog. I started friends who just followed the blog. Oh, you should write a book, and well, we all have a book in us, don't we? But sometimes when I have time to think, I'm not very good in front of the camera, but sometimes when I have time to think, I can put a kind of few words together which which aren't too bad. So an excerpt from that experience when I was seeing a psychologist. An excerpt from what I wrote at the time was standing on the edge of a cliff. If I say yes, I'm jumping off. There's no going back. I didn't want to be labelled as one of those quitters. Stress had become the new bad back for coppers wanting an early retirement. And I didn't want that finger pointing at me. If naught else, I believed I was conscientious. Although I was given a green light to leave the police, I refused it. I don't think I could leave under such circumstances. I would feel for the rest of my life that I had failed, and it didn't sit comfortably with me. I had to be true to myself, retain some self-esteem, and be strong enough to be the person I believed I was.
Yeah.
It was difficult, but I returned back to the streets for a short time before getting the opportunity to head back to traffic, which I suppose was where my roots lay within the job.
Did you eventually leave after completing your service, or?
In fact, you have to do, well, the standard thing in the police is 30 years, and I actually did 31.
Okay.
And then I went to do a part-time job for a charity, Age UK, for 5 years. And then Rachel, who looked after the purse strings for our family, which is just as well because I was rubbish with money, as buying all these motorbikes has probably proved. She had been off work with a spine operation and said, I came home from work one day and she said, if we downsize house, I think we can both retire. And that's what we did, and we had 8 years travelling, and it was just, yeah. And I look back now and think, wow, those 8 years that we had doing that. I mean, we just worked, we just worked together.
Brian, about death, because we are all afraid of it.
I'm not.
But yeah,
I'm not.
That's my point. Because when I look at you, when I watch your videos, like that recent one where you so joyfully riding your motorcycle after the 4th of 6 chemo,
Yeah.
right? Chemotherapy,
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
and you I mean, you radiate pure joy. How do you do it?
It's funny actually. I was out for lunch. Well, I have a light lunch, but I was out for a light lunch with my friend just before this podcast, and I was saying about the video, and I said, because the video camera I use is what they call a 360, so it films everything. So it's only when I get back and I look at the video that I can see what it's recorded. And every time I look back at myself, I've got a smile on my face or I'm laughing. And it's kind of like, I didn't really realise I was doing that. It's not through design. I'm not doing it through design. It's just, I'm just a happy person.
Yes.
And it's like, I met those guys who were converting the old houses. And a friend who lives in the south of England said, why is it that everybody you meet are nice to you? It's not like that whenever I'm riding my motorbike. People are, again, it's not through design. I'm just being myself. But if you smile, it's like holding a mirror up. People smile back. Don't you think as human beings we mirror the person opposite? So
yes.
If somebody's miserable towards you, you're more likely to be miserable. If somebody's aggressive towards you, you're more likely to be aggressive. If somebody's happy towards you, you're more likely to be happy. we kind of mirror each other, and I don't know, I'm just a happy person, I suppose, really. That's it.
Yes. Yes, you don't seem at all to be shying away from this fact that you have cancer, and it doesn't scare you. You also openly talk about it, which I find very inspiring for other people, because when they see one can travel, enjoy his passion, like motoring, enjoy life, luxury vehicles.
Well, I'm fortunate, I've had a few messages. I've had messages from like people of 18 or in their 20s, and commenting on the video, and people from all over the world.
Yeah.
I mean, like I have to say, I'm no influencer. I'm not a big hitter on YouTube by any means. But
But you are becoming one.
No, not really. But I love being if I can. I'm not doing it. I don't know. The first video, the 20,000 miles on the Triumph rocket. I just wanted to get something out there. I was proud to do that on the motorbike, but the undercurrent was the fact I'd lost Rachel, and I wanted to get that out there. And then, of course, the Porsche Boxster travel, I wanted to get it out there about me having cancer. And I know that, like lots of people who are suffering, like I said at the start of one of my videos, we're all individuals. Presumably all our cancers are individual to us. But this is just my story. It doesn't mean to say that just because I'm doing this and that you can all do it, but maybe it can change people's thoughts a little bit. Instead of thinking, oh, I've got cancer, it's a death sentence, I can't do anything. Well, eventually cancer's probably going to nail me. But until I start to deteriorate, until it stops me from doing, but then even then I'll change. If I went and bought a motorbike the other day, and I said, and the guys, all the local motorcycle dealers know my health situation, and I said, look, I might only be able to ride this for 6 months. I don't get a better deal because of that, but I might only be able to ride this for 6 months. So what's the best way of buying it? But I might be riding it for 6 years. But if in 6 months' time it's like, I can't ride this motorbike anymore, well, maybe I can drive my car, and then it might be, well, I can't drive this car anymore. Well, I'll take up drawing, or I'll do something else, or I'll do something else. It's like the whole COVID thing. You can't travel out of your country, so travel in your country. You can't travel in your country, well, travel in your county. You can't travel in your county, well, travel in your town. There's places I don't know around my doorstep. I was out this morning on my motorbike on roads I'd never been on in my life, and I've lived in this county for 55 years, and there were roads literally just a few miles away I'd never been on in my life, and now I am.
It's just like me being 51. This year I realized I haven't been in so many places around my town that I had to go to travel there.
Yeah. It's doing what you can while you can, and when you can't do that, you can do something else. But I think this is where, you mentioned earlier about my positivity. It's not something I work at. It's just in my genes. It's just the way I am, and that's why I regard myself as being lucky. Because, okay, I'm not lucky physically, and I've taken a hit emotionally with the loss of Rachel. But if I didn't have the right mental attitude, life would be pretty miserable, wouldn't it? Well,
I believe so.
I just don't want to be like that. I don't want to be like that. I want to, yeah.
It, does Porsche support you in any way, or it's just your solely initiative?
No. Oh, it'd be nice if they did.
Dear Porsche,
Yeah, well,
UK, we have a request.
well, my brother-in-law actually wrote to Triumph about my exploits on the motorbike. But you know, you just one of many people, aren't you? Unless they can see some advantage. You know, unless your name's Ewan McGregor and you're going round the world on a motorbike, unless they can get some financial benefit from it, the chances are they're not going to be.
Yeah, you can ask Amazon the Grand Tour.
yeah. So, but it's fine, and like I'm not doing YouTube for money, which is just as well. But no, you know, I'm just happy. Like I say, I have contentment, and I think if you have contentment in life, you don't need anything else. You don't need anything else.
Yes, that's.
If they take the car and bike away from me, I'll find something else.
That is true, and again, you are so inspiring.
That's kind of you to say.
Yeah. It was a pleasure to have you, and to be. I feel really very fortunate to being able to talk to you, and thank you for finding this time for me.
Well, thank you for the invite, and yeah, thank you.